begin by commending the member for Lindsay for bringing this very important motion on the National Disability Insurance Scheme to the attention of the House. The NDIS, as we all know and acknowledge, is a historical reform, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it was initiated by the previous Labor government and is designed to support Australians with disabilities to have the best opportunity for the same quality of life as the rest of us in the community. This is why, Madam Deputy Speaker, this government must match its rhetoric with action to ensure that the commitment it has repeatedly given to Australians with disability and to their carers provides adequate funding and resources to support and to provide for all of the necessary measures needed to live their lives without barriers to their potential and to their fulfilment of that potential. Deputy Speaker, in March this year, the NDIS began rolling out in my electorate, giving my constituents the very long-awaited opportunity to finally transition to and to access the scheme. My constituents will join thousands of others across the northwestern region of Melbourne who will be required to submit their care packages for approval, for assessment and hopefully for approval. And for some, Madam Deputy Speaker, this process that they've engaged in is already providing a source of anxiety and frustration. The longer than expected rolling out in the federal seat of Calwell, for example, has been a source of concern to begin with, but now the assessment experience itself is proving a challenge, as is the pricing structures. Now, for instance, Deputy Speaker, to date, we do not have a local area coordinator for the Brimbank area, which is the northwestern end of my electorate. To many of my constituents, they are facing unnecessary delays and there are also unwelcome hurdles to accessing the NDIS as a result of these delays. Despina Havelas, who is a parent and activist for families with autistic children and who has founded a local support group, Autism Angels, tells me that our local parents are very worried and concerned about the lack of help being provided to them in order to help them navigate what is a very technical and very different approach for assessing their cases. Deputy Speaker, most of these families of non-English speaking backgrounds, and that in itself, one might say, is an additional disadvantage to actually defending the rights of their child or their family, friend or relative who is accessing or trying to access the NDIS. So far, the rate of approvals have been disappointing. Complaints by people trying to access the scheme are mounting as people believe their individual needs are not being properly considered. For those who have gone through the assessment, they often cite the phone interviews as a major obstacle, as this method of interaction doesn't allow for people-to-people contact, which is vital in helping assess the needs of the applicants. The lived experience, Deputy Speaker, cannot be gauged by telephone-only assessments, as the approach by the caseworkers appears to be primarily driven by the cost-saving measures and attitudes, which means the experience is more about deleting or refusing services that once were provided in the package in order to save money. Now, Deputy Speaker, this should not be the overriding concern of the assessment process. The best package for the individual's needs should be the primary concern. People with disabilities have a right to access the NDIS fully, not partially. They should not be made to feel that they have to fight every step of the way in order to justify the most appropriate package to help them and their carers live a fruitful and valuable life. Now, one of my constituents, Andrew, who has attempted to access the NDIS, was refused for both the NDIS and the disability support pension. Andrew's a good example of someone who's haven't been able to convince, despite medical records, hasn't been able to convince either providers that he is eligible. He has an impairment in his back hip and shoulder that make it difficult for him to work. Andrew cannot stand for long periods of time. He cannot lift heavy things. He finds it difficult to write and has restricted movement when sitting. Andrew's treating doctor considered him eligible for both the NDIS and the DSP. Despite this, an unnamed delegate did tell Andrew that he could not access NDIS because the delegate was not satisfied that Andrew had a physical impairment. He's 64 years old and he very soon will not be able to even access the NDIS. He won't be able to access the age pension for a further 6 months. So the question is, what does someone like Andrew, what is he expected to do in order to support himself?
Order. I thank the member for